Since 1889, Carhartt has been pretty much the most famous workwear brand on earth. But somewhere in there, Carhartt went from being laborer lapels to the latest streetwear drip. This company is one that many overlook, but has secretly become one of the weirdest mainstream fashion brands we've covered on this channel. The workwear-focused company has done collabs with Converse, which is not surprising at all, maybe, but they have also created Carhartt Bluetooth speakers. So if you're wondering what the hell is going on with Carhartt, you came to the right place. To fully illustrate the depth of the change that has occurred within this company, you need to understand where Carhartt came from. Founded in 1889, Carhartt was a purebred workwear brand made strictly for manual laborers. This was the heyday of the locomotive, steel, and steam industries, and American workers needed durable clothing that was affordable and lasted through years of wear and tear. Their first product was their legendary coveralls, which quickly dominated the workwear market. Now, after a couple decades of success in the States, Carhartt expanded to international markets. The brand became so well known for outfitting workers that when war times came around, they produced soldiers' uniforms and workwear for women who were filling in at the factories. Throughout the 1900s, Carhartt completely dominated the workwear market because their clothes lasted twice as long as their competitors. Even though they began expanding overseas, their brand identity was so tied to American values that politicians are often seen wearing Carhartt products on the campaign trail to seem more in line with the working class voters. I have a bit of a confession to make actually on this note. Not that I'm a politician or anything, but when I go home to the small town where I grew up in, I still have my Carhartts in the closet that I will wear sometimes just to sort of blend in more seamlessly with the locals. God, that really makes me the terrible kid who moved away to the city and never came back, doesn't it? The brand grew a cult-like following. So much so that there is actually an annual Carhartt ball in Alaska where everyone in town gets decked out in shades of brown and brown to show off their Carhartt pride. And at the Alaska State Fair, they host a Carhartt fashion show, which honestly might be a fashion show I'd be interested in going to. In the 1980s, Carhartt was still chugging along as the leader in workwear, but something interesting also started happening around this time. Carhartt coats became insanely popular in the urban drug dealing scene. As one Carhartt salesman put it, they needed to keep warm and they needed to carry a lot of stuff. Which I love, because the stuff was drugs. The stuff was drugs. The deep pockets on Carhartt coats went from carrying tools to carrying illicit things and graffiti cans. And all of a sudden, Carhartt had a whole new target demo. Kids on the street picked up on the Carhartt trend, and it evolved into everyone's favorite streetwear brand. Everyone who was like cool and selling drugs and aspiring to sell drugs, probably. Not like everyone. Around the same time, rappers and hip-hop artists started rocking Carhartt clothing too, and Tommy Boy Records sold personalized Carhartt coats with their label embroidered on them, creating the first unofficial streetwear collaboration for the brand. Now, to give Carhartt cred, they really leapt ahead of the curve and caught on to this new major demographic opportunity and released a new work in progress line in 1989. This line became less about work and more about the wear. It emphasized design elements that appealed to mass audiences and looked more refined than the traditional stuff. The work in progress line gained a ton of popularity in Europe specifically, and all of a sudden, Carhartt had two audiences to sell to. Now, while this may seem like a uniquely perceptive business maneuver that Carhartt was able to finesse, this is actually just the standard procedure for corporate America. Whether it's the punk scene, hipster, granola people, or rap music, capitalism is great at taking these upcoming countercultural movements and adopting them into the mainstream and monetizing the hell out of it. Until it's bled dry and then they quickly jump on to the next thing. Today, Carhartt is still technically considered a workwear brand, but its reach has gone way beyond its original demographic. You can find their stuff all over the place, not just at your Tractor Supply store. Now, Carhartt made this initial shift to grow their business, of course, but it was also out of survival, because during this time, work was changing. And if you're a workwear brand, you need to change too. In the 1990s, minimalist, muted, earth tone workwear shifted from function to fashion. And so what used to be worn as a uniform was now being worn, when you needed to light a campfire or crush a couple beers with the boys. This is true in fashion across the board, not just with Carhartt. Before denim blue jeans were the most popular item of clothing in basically every single person's closet in the world, they were designated as workwear for miners and other manual labors. Shifts in fashion trends have also made workwear popular in everyday life. After clothes with huge bedazzled logos faded from the fashion scene, minimalist style rose in popularity. Basically, instead of making a flashy statement, wearing brands like Carhartt became a low-key flex. Oh, and let's not overlook the popularity of the sort of lumbersexual masculine look that you see in every rom-com that's ever been made. Like, for some reason, the guy's got makeup on and immaculate hands and nails, but he's wearing full work gear in the middle of the day in New York City. I don't actually know if that's accurate. I don't watch a lot of rom-coms. Now, Carhartt has done a remarkable job of maintaining its relevancy in the shifting fashion landscape, despite being pigeonholed into a pretty narrow niche from the beginning. So through their natural adoption into streetwear, they became a staple of rap music and skateboarders in the late 90s. But their work in progress line was just getting started. They collaborated with Bape in 2006 and have since partnered with other huge streetwear brands from Europe and Asia. Perhaps most notably was Junya Watanabe in 2018 for their spring collection. Now, these are pretty hugely influential fashion-y collabs from what I am told, which makes sense for a fashion clothing brand like Carhartt, but they have also decided that they wanted to do more than that. In 2020, Carhartt launched their collaboration with Guinness, yes, the beer. They then partnered with Warner Bros. To celebrate the release of The Batman, which of course had a bunch of different jackets and t-shirts and beanies, etc. with the Batman emblem on them. But they've gone beyond clothes, okay? They're making Bluetooth speakers. They're making mocha pots, lounge margarita glass sets. I mean, it feels like things have gone a little off the rails here. Now, to give them credit, it's not every brand that can go from tan work coveralls to margarita glassware. This complete 180 calls into question whether or not Carhartt has sold their soul. Can you even consider them to be the same company as the one they started back in 1889? Honestly, Carhartt is still insanely popular with their original demographics somehow. Perhaps for a lot of people, it is just a throwback to a more nostalgic, simpler days that have gone by. But regardless of how, it is clear that they've managed to retain these two specific audiences. The reason for this, I think, is that they market their traditional brand and the work-in-progress brand completely differently. You can see this on their websites as they are completely separate from each other, and it is important to note that the work-in-progress line is way more expensive than the original Carhartt line. The clothing is also constructed differently and doesn't have the same stiffness of the Carhartt workwear. So they have done everything in their power to make sure that while under the same name, the two lines have almost completely different appeals. However, even though Carhartt claims that they've maintained their humble roots, it is obvious that they aren't mad about the fact that they've reached these new audiences and demographics. They have put a ton of effort and money into catering to this wider public interest, and they've been enjoying the money that has come from it too. But despite this massive success, it doesn't mean that things haven't changed the company in a pretty massive way. From the beginning, Carhartt has said that they are committed to making clothes that last. And that still seems to be their MO, at least for the traditional Carhartt brand. They also have a repair program to help extend the life of their clothes, which is really great to see. However, loyal Carhartt customers have been disappointed in the quality of Carhartt from the last few years. The overall consensus is that the company is focusing so much energy on their streetwear line that the quality of the workwear is slipping. And this has implications for their core base that got the company started. They are also one of the many large brands to adopt a corporate responsibility model on sustainability. From the beginning, Carhartt gave pretty well zero about the planet and the people who made their clothing. While their long-lasting, durable clothes are a great step towards more sustainable fashion, this was a happy byproduct of making work clothes. Today, the issue of climate change rendering our planet completely uninhabitable has gained mainstream attention, and they have done some things in a more generic sense to make themselves appear more sustainable in order to avoid public backlash. Really, they've just incorporated a few more eco-friendly fabrics like organic cotton here and there, but in general, workwear uses a lot of materials made from plastics, nylon, and polyester. There's also the issue of how and where their clothes are made. While they have several factories in the US still, they also manufacture a lot of their clothing in Mexico, where working conditions are a lot less transparent. So in my opinion, Carhartt has definitely sold out, but let me explain why. If they had retained their quality and they had some kind of backbone that the company had held on to throughout this success, it'd be pretty hard to bash them. But while they flaunt their humble family-owned history all over their website, it seems like their strategy is to make as much money as possible, no matter the niche. But is this a bad thing? I tend to think that anything that reaches this level of mindless fandom rarely contributes positively to society. Buying a mocha pot or a literal brick because of the brand name that's on the side of it is the pinnacle of mindless consumption. And any brand that perpetuates this is doing it to make money, not to do anything positive for the people who are buying it. But maybe that's just a hot take. Let us know what you think down below. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.